Week 12 of the fantasy football season, with the trade deadline coming up in most fantasy leagues this upcoming week. Here's a few players I would sell and trade this week. The first player, Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, it's been a down year in a 50-50 split with Zach Charbonnet in the backfield for Seattle. His best game of the season was Kenneth Walker, Week 11 at the Los Angeles Rams. 5 games in a row, he failed to reach double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues before the Week 11 loss at the Rams. Week 7 versus Houston, 17 carries, 66 yards. Week 9 at Washington, 11 carries, 42 yards, 2 catches, 19 yards. And Week 10 versus Arizona, 14 carries, 67 yards, a catch, 3 yards. And Week 11 at the Rams in the loss, like I said, in that one, 16 carries, 67 yards, a touchdown, 3 catches, 44 yards. He did a lot in the receiving game, Kenneth Walker, way more than he's done all season, and he found the end zone as well. But it's still a 50-50 split. And we know the Seattle Seahawks team 7-3 on the season, where a lot of games where they're up. Obviously, that's Zach Charbonnet gets a lot of goal line touches and more plays and big opportunities than Kenneth Walker. So like I said, 5 games in a row it was where he failed to reach double-digit fantasy points. And coming off his best game of the season with the deadline here this week, he's a player I would sell this week. Next player, Tyrone Tracy of the New York Giants. Tracy, he's in a 50-50 split in the backfield with Singletary. And Singletary, we saw him get big touches at the goal line where he found the end zone twice. They've been filling in decently for Scatterbo in a split in the backfield for this Giant team. The last few games, Week 8 at Philly, 10 carries, 39 yards, 2 catches, 14 yards. Week 9 versus the Niners, 5 carries, 18 yards, 3 catches, 19 yards. Week 10 at the Bears, 14 carries, 71 yards, a catch, no yards. And Week 11 versus Green Bay, 19 carries, 88 yards, 4 catches, 51 yards. So this Giant offense, we're actually moving more efficiently like a more traditional offense with Jameis Winston in their quarterback instead of Jackson Dart, who likes to run the football a lot as well, obviously. But in terms of fantasy football, like I said, Tracy, the ceiling isn't that high. Jackson Dart, he vultures a lot of touchdowns, and I believe he'll be back in this Week 12 game at the Detroit Lions, where they're going to be trailing most likely early and often in that one. So coming off a good game for Tracy, and like I said, though, in a 50-50 split, and Terry get more of the important touches at the goal line. He's a sell-high player this week. Next player, Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Breece Hall, obviously his value would have been way up there if that trade with the Kansas City Chiefs went down, but obviously he stayed on the New York Jets. And I know there's not much going on in this offense, but teams are definitely going to load the box now, with obviously Garrett Wilson out another 3 weeks minimum with his injury going on IR last week. So the last few games for Hall, Week 8, it's Cincinnati, 4-yard pass and touchdown, 18 carries, 133 rush yards, 2 TDs, 2 catches, 13 yards. Week 10 versus Cleveland, a screen touchdown saved his day, 21 carries, 83 yards, the screen for 42 yards and a touchdown. And then Week 11 in New England, he got bottled up, 14 carries, 58 yards, 2 catches, 6 yards. So Week 12, a tough matchup at Baltimore. The defense has definitely turned things around over the last few weeks here is this Baltimore Raven team. And like I said, this New York Jet team, they don't really throw the football to Breece Hall, surprisingly. Where over the last couple seasons, he's been a good receiver out of the backfield. And also now, I think they might go to Tyrod Taylor with the starting quarterback position, even though he might be a better option at this point than Justin Fields. But with all those factors, and like I said, teams are going to load the box, and the Jets will be trailing most likely early and often, and Hall not doing much in the receiving game. He's a sell-high player this week. The next player, Michael Wilson of the Arizona Cardinals. Michael Wilson, he went off monster ball game, one of the best receiving games we've seen all season by a receiver. It was a lot of garbage time, obviously. This Arizona Cardinal team, they were down out of the gate, 2 touchdowns quickly to the San Francisco 49ers. And Wilson, he was a guy mentioned on the waiver wire to pick up, but anytime you can pick someone up off the wire and flip him in a deal with someone more of a track record and consistency, you do it. So Wilson, he was acting as the number 1 wide receiver, but obviously Marvin Harrison, he's out, and we'll see if he's out this week or not versus Jacksonville. But like I said, Michael Wilson, he didn't have one double-digit fantasy game all season long in PPR leagues till Week 11, where he exploded. Week 9 at Dallas, 3 catches, 61 yards. Week 10 at the Seahawks, 4 catches, 34 yards. In Week 11, like I said, versus San Francisco, he went off 15 catches, 185 yards on 18 targets. So like I said, they were down 2-3 touchdowns a majority of the game was the Arizona Cardinals. And Michael Wilson, he was a pickup last week towards the end of the week with Harrison out. And now he's going to be a pickup this week as well, where he's available in 53% of fantasy leagues. But like I said, it was a big game. It was a lot of garbage time. And Marvin Harrison, he might be back sooner than later, possibly even this week versus Jacksonville. So with all those factors and coming off a monster game, he's a prime sell high candidate this week. Next play, DK Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Metcalf, it's been a struggle for him over the last month of the season. And now it looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to be out with a fracture in his left wrist. I know it's the non-throwing hand, but obviously he left the game in Week 11 in that one versus Cincinnati and didn't return. So Metcalf, 3 games in a row, he's failed to reach double-digit fantasy points. He's been a touchdown-dependent wide receiver as well this season with the Steelers team. And right now, like I said, DK Metcalf is a player you just pretty much want off your roster with Rodgers most likely out at least this week and possibly more. Week 8 versus Green Bay, 5 catches, 55 yards, a touchdown. Week 9 versus the Colts, 2 catches, 6 yards. Week 10 at the Chargers, 3 catches, 35 yards. And Week 11 versus Cincinnati, 5 catches, 49 yards, 8 targets. I know Week 12 a decent matchup at the Bears, 5th most fantasy points they give up to receivers, even though this Bear defense, in big parts, they've made plays this season. But like I said, DK Metcalf, he's been a touchdown-dependent receiver. And now with Rodgers out of the lineup, I don't think it's a great sign for Metcalf. And he's a player I would sell this week. The next player, Jakobi Meyers of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jakobi Meyers, he just got traded to Jacksonville a couple weeks ago at the NFL trade deadline. I know Brian Robinson Jr., he's been out the last couple games where him and Meyers haven't played together so far. But Meyers, I don't think his ceiling is that high in this Jacksonville offense. They like running the football a lot with Travis Etienne, Bashal Tootin, even though he got banged up. And we don't know if he's going to be out a while or not. Week 9 in his last game with the Raiders, 4 catches, 23 yards on 6 targets. Week 10 at Houston, 3 catches, 41 yards. And Week 11 versus the Chargers, 5 catches, 64 yards on 6 targets. So they had a big game, Jacksonville. But like I said, Jakobi Meyers, I don't think the ceiling is that high. It was good to see him have a double-digit fantasy game. The first one he had going back to Week 2 for Jakobi Meyers. But with all those factors, and like I said, he don't have a lot of value in my opinion, even on a Jacksonville offense. Banged up in the receiving room. Obviously, Hunter out for the season and Brian Thomas out over the last couple weeks. He's still a player I would just sell off on my roster. Like I said, he's coming off a good game, and see if you could get something of decency like a backup running back or even a quarterback in that deal if you need a quarterback. And the final play I look to sell and trade is Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. So Jordan Love, it's been an up and down season in terms of fantasy football. 6-3-1 on the season is his Packer team, but a lot of injuries in this receiving room. It's been for this Packer team. Jaden Reed, he's been out a majority of the season with a collarbone injury. Matthew Golden, he's been banged up on and off. Christian Watson, he's been banged up a lot, even though he's returned over the last few weeks, and he did have 2 touchdowns in the Week 11 victory at the Giants. But like I said, the ceiling just isn't high for Jordan Love, in my opinion, and this is a run-first team with Josh Jacobs, even though we'll see how long Jacobs possibly could be out if he left with a knee injury in Week 11 at the Giants. So Week 8 at Pittsburgh, 360 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion. Week 9 versus the Panthers, 273 passing and interception. Week 10 versus Philadelphia Eagles, 176, 28 rush yards, a fumble loss. In Week 11 at the Giants, 174 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 rush yards, a 2-point conversion. So like I said, the ceiling to me with Jordan Love just isn't that high in my opinion. And with a banged up receiving core, not a true number one, and Tucker Kraft out for the season as well with the ACL. That's a big loss, obviously, over the last couple weeks for this offense. So with all those factors, and if Jacobs is out as well, it's going to be tough for Love to go out there and teams not really zeroing on him. So he's a player I would sell off this week, because in some favorable matchups as well this season. His numbers haven't been great, so that's a few players I look to sell and trade for Week 12 of the fantasy football season with the deadline this week in most fantasy leagues.